Grand Admiral Zixtol's morning began like any other in the crystalline spires of Imperial Strategic Command. The sweet aroma of fermented nectar wafted up from his ceremonial cup as he settled into his hover chair, ready for another day of managing the Empire's vast military might. The translucent displays around him showed the usual reports: fleet movements, diplomatic tensions, resource distributions across 1,000 worlds. Then he saw the images of the human warships. The nectar sprayed across his console in a fine mist as he choked mid-sip. His secondary breathing bladder kicked in automatically as he stared at the crude vessels that dared call themselves a fleet. They looked like cargo haulers welded together by blind maintenance droids, all sharp angles and exposed metal, with primitive chemical thrusters dotting their hulls like pustules on a space whale's vac. "Surely this is someone's idea of a joke," he rumbled, his scales shifting to a deeper shade of purple in amusement. "These things can't possibly be their actual military vessels." His command staff gathered around the display, their own scales rippling with barely contained mirth. Captain Phoenix, his chief of tactical analysis, actually had to lean against a crystal pillar to keep from doubling over with laughter. "My lord," Phoenix managed between wheezing breaths, "their primary weapons appear to be kinetic projectiles. They're throwing rocks at each other in space." The entire command center erupted in cascading waves of laughter. Junior Analyst Vertil watched from her station as her superiors mocked the human fleet's specifications. Her outer eyes tracked the general hilarity, but her primary focus remained locked on her own display, where something wasn't adding up. The power signatures from the human vessels made no sense. They pulsed with energy levels that seemed to fluctuate wildly, appearing and disappearing from her instruments, as if playing some sort of technological hide-and-seek. No primitive chemical rockets should be able to produce such readings. "Sir," she ventured, her voice barely carrying over the continued laughter, "there's something odd about their energy outputs." Admiral Zixtol waved one of his primary limbs dismissively, probably interference from their crude reactors. "These humans clearly haven't even mastered basic power containment." Vertil's scales remained stubbornly gray with concern. "But sir, if you look at the pattern of the fluctuations." "That's enough." Junior Analyst, Captain Phoenix cut her off. "Don't waste the Admiral's time with sensor ghosts from inferior technology." The Admiral was already moving on, his attention drawn to a holographic representation of Earth's orbital defense network. "Look at this. They're still using satellite systems with visible sensors. They haven't even developed basic quantum detection arrays." New rounds of laughter echoed through the command center. Vertil ducked her head and returned to her analysis, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were all missing something crucial. The numbers hidden in those energy signatures told a different story, one of carefully controlled power, precisely modulated and expertly masked. As her superiors continued to mock the humans' apparent technological backwardness, Vertil quietly began composing a detailed report. Someone needed to look beyond the surface, to see what these supposedly primitive humans were really capable of. She had a growing suspicion that the Empire's laughter would soon turn to something very different indeed. The Imperial diplomatic fleet materialized at the edge of the Sol system in a dazzling display of quantum tunneling. 12 ships, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight like artificial constellations, arranged themselves in the traditional crescent of dominance formation. It was a sight that had made countless civilizations reconsider their independence. Captain Renthar stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, the Star Ascendant, watching his crew make final adjustments to their sensors. "Status of the human detection systems. They've only now noticed our arrival, sir," his sensor officer reported with poorly concealed disdain. "Their primitive radar took nearly 3 minutes to register our presence." Renthar's scales rippled with amusement. This would be the easiest diplomatic mission of his career. Show up, overwhelm the primitives with imperial might, and have them signing vassalage treaties before their next solar rotation. Then the humans did something unexpected. Ships began emerging from behind Earth's moon, Mars, and the asteroid belt. Not in panic or disorder, but in a scatter pattern that seemed almost deliberate. Their vessels moved with surprising grace, using minimal thrust bursts to maintain formations that defied Imperial tactical analysis. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, "they're taking up positions that don't match any known combat doctrine." Before Renthar could respond, a communication request pinged across all Imperial frequencies simultaneously. The humans had not only detected their quantum-encrypted channels, but had matched their communication protocols perfectly. A human face appeared on the main display. "Imperial Fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Welcome to Sol System." Her smile seemed genuine, but there was something in her eyes that made Renthar's scales itch. "We're honored by such an impressive diplomatic delegation." The emphasis on diplomatic was subtle but clear. They knew this was no mere courtesy call. "Perhaps," Chen continued, "you'd be interested in a friendly demonstration, a war game to showcase our different approaches to space warfare." Her smile widened slightly. "Winner gets access to the loser's basic shield technology." Renthar's secondary hearts skipped a beat. The humans were offering their primitive technology as a wager. This was too perfect. "We accept," he said, trying to maintain proper diplomatic decorum despite his growing excitement. "Standard simulation protocols, no actual weapons fire." "Excellent." Chen's response came with another enigmatic smile. "We'll begin in 1 hour. Oh, and Captain, don't worry about holding back. We're quite eager to learn from the Empire's superior technology." As the communication ended, Renthar turned to his tactical officer. "Analysis of their deployment. Sir, they're positioning ships in ways that leave them incredibly vulnerable. No overlapping fields of fire, minimal shield coverage. It's as if they've never fought in space before." Renthar chittered in amusement as he ordered his fleet into attack formation. This would be a lesson the humans wouldn't soon forget. Yet as he watched their ships continue their strange maneuvers, a tiny voice in the back of his mind wondered why Admiral Chen had seemed so confident. He dismissed the thought. After all, what could these primitives possibly know about modern warfare that the Empire didn't? He was about to find out exactly how much. The war games began with what appeared to be chaos. Human ships scattered like mercury droplets on a magnetized surface, breaking their already loose formation into even smaller groups. Imperial gunners tracked the erratic movements with growing frustration as targeting solutions refused to stabilize. "Their formation makes no tactical sense," Tactical Officer Vexmar reported, his scales shifting in confusion. "They're exposing their flanks, creating gaps in their defense lines. It's as if they're inviting us to attack." Captain Renthar's order came with practiced confidence. "Oblige them. Target their command vessel with a standard power burst. Let's show them what real weapons can do." The Star Ascendant's primary quantum cannon charged with a harmonious hum, its crystalline array focusing enough energy to vaporize a small moon. The beam lanced out across space, perfectly targeted, and passed through empty void as the human vessel simply wasn't there anymore. "Impossible." Vexmar's scales blanched. Their chemical thrusters couldn't have moved them that quickly. Admiral Chen's voice crackled across their comms, somehow sounding both professional and amused. "Excellent shot, Captain. Now, allow us to demonstrate our own approach." Multiple alerts screamed across the Imperial bridge. Hundreds of objects had just accelerated from the human fleet's position, their velocity climbing to terrifying levels. The Imperial crew watched in mounting horror as their sensors identified the objects. Solid tungsten rods, each barely 2 meters long but moving at a significant fraction of light speed. "Raise shields," Renthar ordered, but even as the words left his mouths, he knew it wouldn't matter. Imperial shields were designed to disperse energy weapons, not stop physical objects moving with enough kinetic energy to rival tactical nuclear weapons. The simulation registered multiple direct hits. Had this been real combat, 3 Imperial vessels would have been transformed into expanding clouds of debris. "How?" Renthar's voice trailed off as he watched the human ships execute maneuvers that should have torn them apart. They used gravity assists from nearby asteroids, converting orbital momentum into tactical advantage. Their chemical thrusters fired in precise bursts, changing vectors in ways that made Imperial inertial compensators look clumsy by comparison. "Sir," his sensor officer's voice cracked with disbelief. "They're using the debris from our simulated destroyed ships as cover. The fragments are interfering with our targeting systems." The human fleet had evolved into a swarm of smaller units, each moving independently yet somehow coordinated. When Imperial ships managed to target one group, it would split apart, revealing another group already launching a counterattack from an impossible angle. More kinetic rounds crossed the battlefield, followed by swarms of missiles that split and merged in patterns that defied prediction. The Empire's sophisticated targeting systems, designed to track energy signatures and quantum fluctuations, struggled to lock onto weapons that were little more than precisely aimed rocks. "This is impossible," Vexmar whispered as another Imperial ship registered as destroyed. "They're using basic physics as a weapon." Admiral Chen's voice returned, calm as ever. "Physics is the ultimate weapon. Officer Vexmarch, we just chose not to overcomplicate it." As Renthar watched his fleet's formation crumble under the human assault, he remembered Vertil's concerns about those strange energy readings. Now he understood. The humans hadn't been showing power fluctuations from crude technology. They had been masking their true capabilities all along. And this, he realized with growing dread, was probably just the beginning. While the kinetic battle raged across space, a different kind of warfare had already breached Imperial defenses. Deep within the Star Ascendant's quantum computing core, impossible things were happening. Critical systems began displaying errors that made no sense, creating cascading failures that spread like digital wildfire. "Sir, navigation is showing phantom gravitational readings," reported the navigation officer, her scales shifting to a pale yellow of confusion. "The quantum processors are detecting objects that can't possibly exist." Captain Renthar struggled to maintain composure as more systems began failing. Their supposedly unhackable quantum computers were being compromised by what appeared to be primitive binary code. It was like watching stone tools chip away at crystalline armor. Impossible, yet happening before their eyes. In her office aboard the Imperial Command Station, Junior Analyst Vertil watched the situation unfold with growing vindication. Her screen showed what the others had missed. Human communication bursts hiding in background radiation, piggybacking on the Empire's own quantum channels. They hadn't just brought guns to this fight. They'd brought silicon ghosts that danced through quantum circuits like solar wind through a magnetic field. "Emergency report for High Command," she dictated quickly. "Human cyber warfare capabilities grossly underestimated. They're not trying to break our encryption. They are using our own quantum entanglement channels against us." On the Star Ascendant's bridge, the situation deteriorated further. Weapon systems targeted phantom signals. Shield harmonics fluctuated wildly. Even the artificial gravity began cycling randomly, causing crew members to float momentarily before being pressed back to the deck. "How are they doing this?" Renthar demanded, watching as another display dissolved into meaningless symbols. "These are quantum systems. They operate on principles these humans shouldn't even understand." The answer came from an unexpected source. A young technician, fresh from the Imperial Academy, looked up from his terminal with dawning comprehension. "Sir, they're not hacking our quantum systems directly. They're manipulating the classical interfaces we use to control them. We made our advanced technology user-friendly, and that created vulnerabilities." As if to confirm his analysis, Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the bridge, coming not from the communication systems, but from every speaker and display simultaneously. "Interesting design choice, making your quantum computers compatible with standard digital protocols. Very user-friendly. Very accessible." Renthar's scales shifted to the deep blue of humiliation as he realized the truth. The Empire had been so focused on protecting their quantum systems from advanced attacks that they'd overlooked the basics of digital security. They'd built impenetrable walls while leaving the gates wide open. Vertil's report continued, her analysis growing more urgent. Human cyber warfare doctrine appears to follow their physical combat philosophy. Simple, practical solutions achieving maximum effect. They're not trying to understand our quantum systems. They're simply finding the places where we converted quantum data to classical digital signals and exploiting those transitions. Across the Imperial fleet, systems continued to fail in increasingly creative ways. Ships reported their fuel tanks as simultaneously full and empty. Targeting computers identified every asteroid as a potential threat. Environmental systems began playing what seemed to be human musical compositions through the air filtration units. The Empire was learning a harsh lesson. Sometimes the simplest approach was the most devastating. And the humans, it seemed, were masters of turning simplicity into a weapon of extraordinary effectiveness. As their electronic systems descended into chaos, the Imperial fleet witnessed something that challenged their fundamental understanding of space warfare. A human cruiser, tagged as the Vancouver in their targeting systems, took a glancing hit from an Imperial energy weapon. Instead of catastrophic failure, the vessel's hull breach sealed itself with what appeared to be rapidly expanding foam. "Impossible," muttered Chief Engineer Kraltex, watching through the Star Ascendant's observation arrays. "They're using mechanical repair systems instead of energy fields. How are they maintaining pressure with such primitive materials?" The answer came in the form of multiple layers of emergency systems activating in sequence. Nanoscale carbon fiber meshes expanded to bridge the gaps, followed by high-density foam that hardened on contact with vacuum. Within seconds, the wound in the Vancouver's hull had been sealed by what looked like layers of metallic scavs. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, "the damaged human vessel is rerouting power through redundant systems. They're not using quantum pathways. They have physical backup circuits." The Vancouver demonstrated this by immediately returning to combat effectiveness, its chemical thrusters firing in precise patterns that sent it spinning through space in ways that made Imperial navigators wince. The maneuver should have torn the damaged section apart, but the primitive repairs held firm. Vertil, still monitoring from her station at Imperial Command, began cataloging the revelations. Human engineering principles appear based on redundancy and mechanical backup systems. No single point of failure. They built their ships expecting things to go wrong. The Empire's fleet was learning this lesson the hard way. Their ships, with their sophisticated quantum systems and crystalline hulls, were masterpieces of advanced technology. But when those systems were compromised, they had no fallback options. The humans, by contrast, seemed to have backup systems for their backup systems. New contact. The tactical officer's scales paled. Human vessels emerging from Mars' orbital shadow. A fresh group of Earth ships appeared, moving in perfect coordination with their damaged allies. They flew in formations that seemed to make no sense until the Imperial tactical computers finally recognized the pattern. They were positioning themselves to use Mars' gravity well as both shield and accelerator. "Their primitive tricks are nothing compared to Imperial technology," Captain Renthor declared, trying to rally his crew. "Target their new formation with remaining functional weapons." But the humans had another surprise waiting. As Imperial energy weapons fired, the Earth ships released clouds of metallic chaff. Simple strips of aluminum and steel that scattered the energy beams like mirrors breaking up light. Behind this impromptu cover, kinetic rounds and missiles already streaked toward Imperial positions. Analysis complete, Vertil's report continued, her fingers flying across her console. Human tactical doctrine embraces fundamental physics rather than attempting to overcome it. They're not trying to defeat gravity. They are using it. They're not trying to contain energy. They are redirecting it. The elegance of this approach became devastatingly clear as human ships executed maneuvers that looked like ballet in vacuum. Each thrust was minimal, each course correction precise. They weren't fighting against space. They were dancing with it. As the Imperial fleet struggled to adapt, Admiral Chen's voice came through once again. "You see, Captain Renthar, sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. Why waste energy fighting physics when you can make it your ally instead?" The war games concluded with the Imperial fleet scattered across the solar system, their sophisticated vessels reduced to simulated debris fields. Captain Renthar stood on his bridge, scales shifting between the pale yellow of shock and the deep blue of humiliation as he surveyed the tactical display. "Final casualty assessment," his tactical officer reported quietly. "In a real engagement, we would have lost 8 vessels, with 3 more severely damaged. The humans." He paused, double-checking his figures. "Lost 2 small frigates and reported moderate damage to 3 others." Admiral Chen's invitation arrived moments later, transmitted on all frequencies just like before. "Captain Renthar, perhaps you'd care to join me aboard the Vancouver for a debrief. I believe we have much to discuss, and I've just had a fresh pot of coffee brewed." The Imperial captain found himself in the unusual position of being a guest aboard what he had, mere hours ago, considered an inferior vessel. The Vancouver's interior defied his expectations just as thoroughly as its combat performance had. Where he expected crude metal walls, he found efficiently organized spaces, with every centimeter serving multiple purposes. "Impressive maneuvers out there," Chen commented, pouring a dark liquid into 2 cups. "Your quantum drives are remarkable pieces of technology. They just weren't used to their full potential." Renthar accepted the offered drink, his translator struggling with the unfamiliar word. "Coffee. Earth's second greatest contribution to galactic civilization." Chen smiled. "After practical engineering, of course." The liquid was bitter yet somehow appealing, much like the lessons of the day. "Your ships," Renthar began, "they're not actually primitive at all, are they?" "Depends on your definition of primitive." Chen pulled up a holographic display of both fleets. "We focused on perfecting the basics before adding complexity. Every system has redundancies, every design tested through centuries of theoretical space warfare development. These vessels," she gestured around them, "they're our training ships, crewed by Academy graduates on their first deployment." The coffee cup slipped from Renthar's fingers, caught by the ship's artificial gravity field, and guided safely to a nearby surface. "Training ships." His scales shifted to pure white, the color of absolute shock in Imperial culture. "Our actual combat fleet is still in Earth orbit," Chen confirmed. "We thought it might be diplomatic to avoid bringing our more advanced vessels to this first meeting." Vertil's analysis flashed through Renthar's mind. The strange energy readings, the inconsistent power signatures. They hadn't been signs of primitive technology. They were evidence of carefully controlled power systems designed to mask their true capabilities. "The Empire has much to learn," Renthar admitted, his color slowly returning to normal. "We've become too reliant on technological advancement without understanding the foundations. That's why we let you detect our ships with standard radar," Chen revealed. "We could have remained completely invisible to your sensors if we'd wanted to. But this way, everyone learns something valuable." As if to emphasize her point, a repair crew passed by the observation window, efficiently sealing the simulated battle damage point with their primitive foam technology. The repair would last years and could be completed in minutes, while similar Imperial repairs would require specialized crystalline growth chambers and days of careful maintenance. "Now then," Chen smiled, refilling their cups, "shall we discuss that shield technology exchange? I believe both sides have much to offer each other." The Imperial Diplomatic Corps worked in overdrive following the war games, their crystalline communication arrays humming with constant traffic between Earth and the Empire's capital. Vertil, newly promoted to Senior Strategic Advisor, found herself at the center of a technological and cultural revolution. Their entire approach to space combat was a carefully crafted strategy. She explained to the assembled Imperial High Command. Her presentation showed side-by-side comparisons of human and Imperial systems. They knew we would underestimate them. They planned for it, used our own prejudices against us. Grand Admiral Zixtal, his earlier mockery forgotten, leaned forward with interest. Explain the foam repair technology. Such a simple solution, yet we never considered it. That's exactly the point, sir. Vertil brought up a detailed analysis of the Vancouver's battle damage. Humans call it keeping it simple. Their ships use layered defenses, physical armor, reactive materials, and emergency systems that don't rely on complex technology. When their ships take damage, they don't try to prevent it entirely. They manage it. The first joint training exercises revealed more surprises. Human crews adapted to Imperial technology with remarkable speed, while Imperial officers struggled with what they considered primitive controls. The humans had designed their systems to be intuitive, requiring minimal specialized training. Your quantum drive interface is impressive, a human engineer commented to her Imperial counterpart. But why does it need 17 different harmonic adjustments? We could probably streamline this into 3 commands and automate the rest. The Empire's initial resistance to such suggestions faded as efficiency ratings improved. Human practical engineering began to influence Imperial design philosophy, while human crews eagerly studied the advanced theoretical physics behind Imperial technology. Admiral Chen found herself hosting regular meetings with Imperial officials, each session accompanied by what had become the unofficial drink of human-Imperial relations. The beauty of coffee, she explained to a fascinated Imperial cultural attaché, is that it's both simple and complex, much like our approach to technology. Vertil's promotion came with a new assignment, heading the Joint Technology Exchange Program. Her office aboard the International Space Station became a hub of innovation, where Imperial quantum theory met human practical engineering. Look at these results, she explained to a mixed team of human and Imperial engineers. By combining our quantum shielding with human-style reactive armor, we've created a defense system that's both more effective and more reliable than either approach alone. The humans had driven a hard bargain in the technology exchange negotiations, but their terms proved surprisingly beneficial for both sides. They would share their primitive technology, but only in exchange for equal access to Imperial advancements. What initially seemed like a lopsided trade revealed its wisdom as the two civilizations learned from each other. You planned this from the beginning, didn't you? Vertil asked Chen during one of their regular strategy sessions. The Admiral smiled over her coffee cup. We knew the Empire would either be an invaluable ally or a dangerous enemy, so we decided to engineer a situation that would demonstrate the benefits of cooperation rather than conflict. Vertil's scales shifted to a thoughtful green. The war games, the technology exchange, even the repair demonstrations, it was all orchestrated to teach us without humiliating us completely. Sometimes, Chen replied, the best way to win isn't to defeat your opponent, but to show them a better way forward. More coffee? 6 months after the legendary war games, the first hybrid vessel emerged from Earth's orbital shipyards. The Star Seeker hung in space like a testament to what two civilizations could achieve together. Its crystalline alloy hull gleamed with the trademark shine of Imperial engineering, while the practical lines and efficient design spoke of human influence. Vertil stood beside Admiral Chen on the observation deck of the International Space Station, watching the final systems checks. It's beautiful, the Imperial advisor admitted, her scales shifting to pleased purple. Though I suspect our engineering teams nearly drove each other mad during construction. Cultural exchange at its finest, Chen laughed, raising her ever-present coffee mug in a toast. Your quantum engineers kept insisting we needed more harmonic stabilizers. Our team responded by showing how a simple gyroscopic system could achieve the same result with half the power consumption. The Star Seeker represented the best of both worlds. Imperial quantum drives paired with human point defense systems. Crystalline hull structures reinforced with primitive titanium alloys. Advanced sensors working alongside practical backup systems. Most importantly, it carried a mixed crew of humans and Imperials, each bringing their unique perspectives to space exploration. Grand Admiral Zixtal's latest report suggests we've sparked quite the revolution in Imperial ship design. Vertil noted, checking her datapad. Several frontier fleets have already adopted our hybrid approach. The results are impressive. And Earth's shipyards are incorporating Imperial quantum theory into our next generation of vessels, Chen added. Though we're keeping our primitive backup systems, much to your engineers' continued amusement. Their conversation paused as the Star Seeker's engines flared to life, a beautiful combination of quantum fields and chemical thrust that pushed the boundaries of known physics. The ship moved with grace that seemed impossible for its size, demonstrating the perfect marriage of Imperial power and human precision. Have you seen the latest long-range sensor data? Vertil asked, her tone growing serious. The anomalies from beyond the galactic rim. Chen nodded, her expression matching her companion's concern. Something's out there. Something big. The quantum fluctuations suggest it's like nothing either of our civilizations has encountered before. Perhaps that's why this partnership was meant to happen. Vertil mused, her scales shifting to thoughtful green. Neither of our civilizations alone might have been prepared for what's coming. But together we have Imperial quantum science and human practical engineering. Chen finished. Advanced theory and battle-tested basics. Complex solutions and simple backups. The Star Seeker completed its maneuver, taking up position alongside its escort fleet, a mix of Imperial cruisers and human frigates, each modified with lessons learned from their counterparts. It was a far cry from the mockery and prejudice of 6 months ago. You know what the best part is? Chen smiled, reaching for the coffee pot. We've only scratched the surface of what we can learn from each other. Every day brings new innovations, new combinations of our technologies that neither side thought possible. Vertil's scales rippled with agreement as she accepted a fresh cup of what had become her favorite human beverage. The Empire's greatest mistake was assuming advancement only moved in one direction. We thought we had reached the peak of evolution, only to discover that sometimes the simplest solution is the most elegant. As they watched the combined fleet prepare for its first official patrol, both leaders knew they were witnessing the dawn of a new era. Whatever lurked beyond the galactic rim would face not just the Empire or humanity, but a unified force that combined the best of both civilizations. And that force would be ready.